Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Get Your Name in the News. So my name is Bela Lazarus, and I'm going to be with you perhaps for the next, hopefully about an hour, maybe a bit less. And I'd love you to, pay attention, get comfortable, grab a notebook or something, because there's going to be a lot of material today, so I want to make sure that people really get the benefit, because this is something you're going to be able to use anytime you're interested in reaching out to media. There's going to be actionable items, and I'm going to talk to you about the results that you're going to get. You're going to see that media is actually really powerful. So think about it this way. If you thought that sitting and paying attention for the 1 hour could get you in front of, say, 40 or 50,000 people of your targeted audience, would that be worth it? And if your answer is yes, I could put 1 hour into this, then put away all the other distractions, close your Facebook, log out of email, turn your phone off, and also please do stay to the end, because I'm going to have some bonus giveaways, and of course I'm going to be talking about my Media Mastery System. So a lot of you are coming to the webinar today because you probably got a message saying I'm going to be raising my prices starting February 1st, which is in 2 days. So I want to talk to you about that, and hopefully you'll be able to see the value and take advantage of this great opportunity. So a little bit about me. I've spent more than 20 years working behind the scenes in media. I've been in radio, television, print, online production, and as you can see from the little logos there, these are actually just some of the magazines that and newspaper sections that I've either edited or written for. So I've covered a lot of material. And what that basically means is I've been the one behind the editor's desk or the producer's desk getting the information that people were sending to me. So if they were sending press releases, I was the one reading them, and I was the one deciding whether or not they were going to, valid to go into the media outlets that I was working for. So I had to make those decisions, and I had to make them very quickly. Now, I'm going to talk about that today, the importance of being able to communicate very well. So this is essentially what got me started, and as you can see, it's a large paragraph of text. I got this when I was at Business in Vancouver, and it made me think that a lot of small businesses really want to get media coverage. They're reaching out to media, but they don't necessarily know how to do it. So what I decided to do was reach out back to media, to the small businesses, and help people get the coverage that they're looking for. I did mention earlier that I'm going to be giving away some bonus gifts, so I just want to tell you about them. I've selected these because I think they are probably some of the most useful gifts you might ever get from a webinar. I know that's saying a lot, but this is a video series that actually shows you how to put together media pitches. So you don't have to spend the thousands of dollars that you might have to if you're working with a PR company. And the beauty about these gifts is, maybe you aren't going to use them today or tomorrow, but once you have them, you can essentially reach out to me with questions, but also you can follow through and use these down the road. So for example, if maybe you don't have an event now, but you have an event that you want coverage for in 6 months, you can pull these up and use these to understand how to write a press release or a general media pitch. If you are just starting out in your business and you don't have any advice columns written already or blogs written already, maybe you want to take some time to write some of that material, and then you can use these media pitch templates to reach out to media in order to get your advice columns into a newspaper or maybe get interviewed as an expert on radio or television. So I also mentioned that I'm going to be talking about the Media Mastery System. So this is a system that I created to enable small businesses to go step by step in reaching out to media. So if you stay around, I'm going to actually explain how that works. And it will go over the step-by-step process that will show you how you can go from what do I do to start with to a point where you're actually sending out media pitches and press releases and getting media coverage. So I urge you to stay around for that. So let's get started on some of the material I have for today. First of all, a bit of an overview. You know, a lot of people don't know exactly who they're sending material to and who's at the other end that's looking at them. So this gives you a bit of an idea of what happens behind the scenes. So in the yellow box, you'll see 3 different types of decision makers. An editor, which usually works in magazines, newspapers, which could be print or online, and that could also be an associate editor or a managing editor, anybody that has the word editor in it. Producers generally work in television and radio, and for online material, for a website, you would have an online publisher. And then you can see the way material gets to these decision makers. Either journalists pitch directly and say, hey, I've got a story, or the public sends in material to us, to the editors and producers, and say, hey, I have an idea for a story. Or people in the public might access journalists, or they might use a PR company, or the editors or producers might actually use an internet search to find this material. Today, we are focusing on the public. That's you. So this is going to look at how you, as an individual or member decision maker in a company, maybe you are a marketing expert and you want to add this type of PR outreach to the services you provide. Maybe you have expertise in social media, but you want to learn how to pitch to traditional media. You are the public, and we're going to look at how you can contact these decision makers in media. So the Media Mastery System that I talked about earlier, and the way it's broken down, is basically focuses on a strategy that combines what your goals are with the timeline that you have. So some people have a very strict timeline, and they need to get something in right away, which means that you're going to have a very strict strategy in how you're going to reach out to media and when, and what kinds of media might be better than others. And we want to combine that with what your goals are. So in this 5-step process that I develop, we start looking at what your offer is and what problem you solve. We look at where you want to be. We're going to look at what you're going to put in a media pitch. And this is all material I'm going to go over today. And we're going to take a look at who you're going to send the material to and then how you follow up. So a lot of material, as I said. Please focus on today's webinar, put away your distractions, grab a notepad and pen, and we'll delve in. So one of the things I like to find out from the people who I've got in my webinar today is just a little bit about who I'm dealing with, what kind of business or industry you're in, and where you're at in media outreach. So if you could just tell me one line about what kind of business you do, and then you could put A, B, C, or D. I've never tried to reach out to media for coverage. I've tried, but I have no results. I've gotten some results, but I want more, or I'm hiding under my sofa. So if you want to just take a moment to go in there, and we'll see who's on the webinar today. And by the way, whatever level you're at is fine, because the material that I present in my courses, they're for people who have either never reached out or they've reached out and got a little bit of success. Some people already have media contacting them, but they don't even know how media actually found them, so they don't know how to repeat the process. And in some cases, they've reached out successfully, but it's been a few months and now they don't know, what to do and how to actually leverage that media, how to get more media attention, just how to keep that publicity going. So we've got education, life coach, turning to food for comfort. Good. Okay, so while more people are typing in there, I'm going to continue. And one of the first questions, of course, we want to answer is, why will you want to access media? What is it going to get for you? So there are basically two things that, two types of results that you get from accessing media. The first that you get are in terms of the reaction to your, whatever you have, like an interview or a column, people actually turning around who might be leads. They might be interested in collaborating you. They might invite you to be a speaker. And so this type of media results gets you actually building your business. The other one, in terms of brand recognition and credibility, it's a little bit more intangible, but at the same time, for many people, it ends up being something that can boost their business recognition factor. So it's like becoming more of a household name. And we'll talk more about that in the future. Some of my clients have gotten amazing results from being in the media because it has boosted their credibility so much that they're even seen as more of an expert, even though they don't have more expertise. They've just been seen more as an expert because they've been in media. One of my favorite quotes that answers why be in media, from Manjeet Minhas, who is an entrepreneur, and if you watch Dragon's Den, she's one of the venture capitalists on Dragon's Den, who says newspaper coverage is the best type of advertising. And we're talking about free coverage. So we're talking about getting an article done about you in the newspaper. The reason it's seen as the best coverage is because it's an independent source that is basically saying, you are the expert, you are the credible person. When I was an editor at Business Vancouver and somebody came to me and let's say they wanted to write an advice column, I had to determine if this person actually had the chops. Like, if they're the expert, I would look into their background, see if they had a media page, see where else they've been in the media. So if you have media coverage, that demonstrates credibility to other media. And then if they passed all those sort of criteria tests, I would put them in, and then they were seen to be the person to listen to because they had passed that level of scrutiny. So that happens in credible, independent news sources, and that boosts your credibility beyond what you can get by posting yourself in places like social media. So the credibility and visibility that my clients get end up resulting in profitability. One without the other doesn't help. So you can have visibility like on social media, but it doesn't do much good if you don't come across as credible. You could be a credible business, but if people don't see you, what's the point? And traditional media is the only thing that can give you that combination of credibility and visibility, making you be seen as the expert and putting you in front of tens of thousands of viewers and listeners. And speaking of tens of thousands, here's just a good idea of the leverage that you can have. And I say leverage because when people go and do their own marketing, let's say you put up a blog and you put it on LinkedIn and you want people to see it, maybe you boost the post on Facebook, you're trying to push your material out and you're spending a lot of time and resources. But if you leverage the marketing that has already been done by media outlets, you spend far less time and get a much bigger result, which is what leverage is. So for example, if you were to get an advice column in Business in Vancouver, you're in front of 40,000 targeted readers. These are people who are business decision makers. So if you are in a business to business company, a business to business field, these are the people you want to be in front of. If you have a business to consumer product, you might want to be on the Marilyn Dennis Show or Vita Magazine, which is that one on the left. Vita has 90,000 national subscribers. when you follow the process that I have created and put in my course, you could spend about, I'd say maybe 2 or 3 hours a month and get these results. Now ask yourself, how long would it take to increase your followers on social media? Even if you took all your media channels, your Facebook and your LinkedIn and your Instagram all together, how long would it take to get you to 90,000 subscribers? How long would it take you to get 40,000 followers? Think about all the step-by-step that you do and ask yourself, like, wouldn't it make more sense to spend less time but be more focused and leverage the legwork that has already been done by these media outlets? And by the way, as well, I also have a module on how to get into podcasts. There's a very particular way to write pitches if you're interested in being interviewed on podcasts. And as of the creation of this presentation, there were more than 60 million people in North America listening to podcasts. So there's a huge audience out there and growing every day. So let's take a look at who is this for. Who can actually access media? Coaches, consultants, and speakers. These are the experts in our fields. These are the people who come in as in the Ask the Expert column, or you might have seen on Global Television, Ask the Expert interviews. These are people who have a particular knowledge in a certain area where they can provide advice for other people. If you're an owner of a retail outlet, maybe you have a particular expertise in how you found the storefront that you needed. That's knowledge that you can pass on to other people. What is it? What is the product that you have? Maybe you have a green product and you can talk about how you source the product. People in retail outlets have an extensive amount of information that they can share. And media is interested in finding this information out and providing that information as a service to their audience. That's what they're there for. Service-oriented businesses like massage therapists or physical trainers. People in construction and real estate. This is a field, you know, construction especially, it is tremendously underserved when it comes to media because they don't have time. They have very little time. And you know what, it's funny, I've worked with construction companies that they don't even know where to begin. They're so busy dealing with their day-to-day issues that getting into social media, getting into digital media, they don't really know where to begin. So when I tell them we're talking about just a few hours a month as opposed to putting in time, maybe some people spend an hour or more a day on their social media. For construction companies and people in the real estate field, this is a real eye-opener. If you're in hospitality and tourism, such as restaurants or hotels, there are industry-specific magazines that actually focus on people interested in reading about your business. I've written quite a bit for a magazine called Meeting Places, which deals with hospitality and tourism, and a lot of hotels and restaurants don't even know that these magazines exist, and they don't even know how easy it is to get into. Overall, anybody who has industry-specific knowledge and advice can get into media. I have to say there are very few times where somebody comes to me and says, do you think I have an opportunity to get into media? And I say no. Very rare times. If the product or service just doesn't have enough of a wide interest, so you're not going to be able to find a wide enough audience, editors and producers might not feel you're transferring enough information, but it's so rare that that happens. So one thing I urge people to do, don't assume that you can't get in. Instead, assume the opposite. Assume that there is a media outlet there that's going to be interested in your story. So here are a couple of examples of the success my clients had, and to give you, the range of types of coverage and the range of content that was in there. This person was a coordinator of Mentorship BC. She wanted to write a column about finding a mentor. We sat down and came up with ideas for reaching out to 5 different media outlets. And of course, it was business to business because people looking for a mentor are in small business field. And it took her about a week and a half to get response. This is from BC Business. By the way, this is called their do-it-yourself management page. They have it in every issue. And it is edited by Felicity Stone, which you can see on the upper right. So she got a response back from Felicity within about a week and was in BC Business the following month in front of 100,000 readers. And believe me, that made a difference for her. Previously, she had been sending out emails to a list that was slowly dying. And with essentially one session with me and writing a few emails, 100,000 readers she was now in front of 100,000 readers. This is another success story I love. This is Barry, who came to me just last November. He had an event called the Depression Confessions, December 29th. As you can imagine, a very hard time to try and get people out to an event about depression, but it's such a serious and important topic. So I worked with Barry, and we identified 10 media outlets, which were essentially radio and television. We didn't have a lot of time. We certainly couldn't access magazines, print magazines, because it took a lot of time to get in there. We wanted to get something that it was a quick turnaround and something that would lend itself to great interviews, which was radio and television. He had started writing press releases and sending them out and needed some help on the subject line. One of the biggest mistakes people make is in the subject line, and these days you have to stand out in an email box. So we reworked the subject line, we restructured the content of the press release, and for those pitches that he had already sent out, I created a follow-up strategy for him. The result, he had responses from CBC Television R Vancouver, CBC Radio North by Northwest, and 2 interviews on Roundhouse Radio. So there he is with Gloria Makarenko, and I put him in touch with another student of mine, Candice Platter, who works with addictions. The 2 of them are really symbiotic, and it was just so timely that I ran into Candice. So the 2 of them got together, and Barry had already been contacted by R Vancouver, suggested that Candice come in, and the 2 of them went on. And that's another benefit from being in a course like this, because I know when people are getting media attention, because my students, my participants tell me. And if I think that anybody else can leverage that media attention and maybe pair up, I will put these people together. So they were on with Gloria Makarenko on R Vancouver. And because of that, he now has a link to a CBC video that he can include in all his marketing material. So that is huge, because that credibility, to be able to put a link like that, and if you know what you're doing and you put a link into social media, actually, you will see this photo come up, which is fabulous. And he can take a screenshot, put it on his homepage. He can take the CBC logo, put it on his homepage as seen on CBC. This gives him so much credibility. For him, more than 500 people came to the event or watched the live stream. And his goal in this case was to get the message out about depression around this time of year, at Christmas time, if you are depressed, what to do, and how people could respond if they had family members or friends who were depressed. So he went well beyond his goal. If you recall earlier, he was aiming for 100 people, and he got 5 times that amount. So let's deal with some of the challenges that you're facing. One of the biggest problems is that media decision makers are hugely busy, especially when you're sitting behind a desk like an editor's desk or producer's desk. You're getting first the messages that you receive every day, which is up to 300 emails. I don't know. I've heard from some media decision makers getting 500 emails every day. 70% of which are email pitches. But at the same time, you're also dealing with all the other departments, the marketing department, the advertising department, sales department, the events department. You're dealing with special sections. You're dealing with editorial meetings. You have to go through photos and videos and help production department. We're not just sitting behind the desk looking at emails. So you have to stand out with one pitch and a follow-up. You have to know exactly what's going to work. for media decision makers. So the question you probably have is, where do you start? So here are some of the things we look at. What's going to get you the most benefit? So again, that goes back to what your goals are. For Barry, his goal was to get enough people out to the event or watching live stream so he could spread the message. And he needed the turnaround in media very quickly. So that's why we went to CBC radio and went to radio and television outlets, CBC and Roundhouse, because we knew that could turn around very quickly. But what's going to give you the best chance to start? Sometimes going to a big media outlet isn't the best opportunity. You might want to start at a smaller media outlet. So this is a type of strategy that is really useful, especially for people who haven't been in media before, especially for startups or small business. I also always tell people you have to treat media like a client. So before telling a client what you have to offer, before sitting down and writing a contract, you would probably find out, what does the client need? So in the same way, you want to find out what media needs. Listen to the podcast, pick up a magazine, watch the TV show, read the blog, find out the kind of material that they put into the content. Try and find out, what kind of podcast is it? Are they looking for people who are irreverent? Are they looking for people who are serious? What material do they put in the magazine? If you watch a TV show like a morning TV news broadcast, do you see them interviewing people like yourself? Like, are there points where they would have somebody on who's a layperson? If you see that, then yeah, that's a possibility for you to be in there, because obviously that's something they need. But if you don't see them interviewing people like yourself, then probably you don't want to take the time or effort to actually pitch to them, because they're not going to respond. And using publications editorial calendars. This is something that is so underused, and I want to give you this tip right now because it's like looking into the future. It's like having a crystal ball. So this is a sample of an editorial calendar. This is Vita magazine, and it gives you an idea of what they planned for the year. And so if you were to look ahead down the road, let's say you were somebody who was an event planner. If you looked in their editorial calendar and you looked ahead, you could see that they were looking for, in the December issue, tips for fabulous entertaining. So that tells you, remember the idea, what does your client need? That tells you that this editor needs tips for fabulous entertaining. And if you have that material, you could actually pitch your media email in a way that's going to tell them you can help them in what they need. You have a solution to their problem. And solving media decision makers' problems is the #1 way for you to get media coverage. This is a sample for Business in Vancouver. As you can see, every week they have a different focus section. So the focus section is what you see in the right-hand column. So if you look ahead, you can see on April 17th, there's a human resources section. If you are a consultant in business, if you have any advice to give about hiring employees, about dealing with employees, about bullying the workplace, about anything to do with HR, you could pitch an advice column for that section. And looking ahead the month after, May 22nd, small business. So again, these are sections that I used to edit when I was at Business in Vancouver. And I would actually scan my emails looking for a subject line that said something like human resources story idea or human resource advice column for you. I would open that email immediately because I knew that that person had taken the time to see what I need. This is such a great opportunity. So in my course, I show you how to access these calendars. They're free, they're available, just clicking through a few little clicks on a website. I'll show you how to do that. You can download them and you can keep them. They create them at the beginning of the year for the entire year. And it's great to refer to them so that you can get an understanding of when you would best be suited to be in their sections. Now, by the way, if you've walked away to get a coffee If you're now looking at your email, if you're checking your Facebook, come back, because this is a story checklist that I have been working on and developing over time. It's what I see as being the key elements that create a good story. So if you can fill 1 or 2 or 3 of these criteria, the more criteria, the better, the more chance media is going to be interested in you. So first off, we have the expertise about a specific service or product. If you are somebody in the field of education, you have an expertise about education. So it's the low-hanging fruit. If you're somebody that does event planning, you have expertise about event planning. If you sell shoes, then you have expertise about shoes. But then you have expertise about creating your business, a learned lesson you might have from operations. So what did it take to build your business to where you are now? Do you have knowledge about how to outsource contract work that you can't do yourself? If you've been growing as a small business, do you have knowledge about when to bring on staff? If you have a storefront, do you have knowledge about how to find the best location and how to write a really great contract for a rental agreement? All these are lessons that can be passed on and are great for business media. These are things often overlooked. An event, key element for a media pitch, because it tells the recipient there's a timeliness to it. And they are more likely to react if there's a deadline to a story. And it's especially important if you can bring out some sort of emotion. So I often suggest for people who don't have events coming up that you try and connect with a nonprofit and get people in the interviews that have something emotional to say, so that elicit a great story, so that when somebody reads it, they really want to know more about it. And if you have an event coming up, tell me about the speakers in the event. What do they have that's going to touch me? What stories do they have that's going to touch my audience? Don't focus so much on the event itself, but actually talk about what the content that each speaker might bring to the table, so that if they have some unique views, I, as a decision maker, will be interested and drawn in because the speaker might have something for me and I might be interested in interviewing them. Is there something new and changing in your field? Are there trends that you might be able to connect yourself to? Trend stories are very, very popular because media loves to capitalize on trends. Do you have geographic or demographic relevance? About a year ago, or maybe 2 now, I was doing a story for a magazine that dealt with retirement issues, and they asked me to find people who were sort of semi-retired who had started businesses after the age of 55. Now that's a hard thing for me to just Google. Like, it's really hard to find, but it was relevant. It's a demographic relevance. The age was really relevant. If somebody had actually sent me information about their company and had included in the background information that they had started it after the age of 55, or they said, I started this company when I was 57, or I started it when I was 61, that would have stood out for me, and I could have used them in that article that I was doing. Do you have a particular niche or quirky offering? That obviously draws a lot of attention. If you think on television when they say, coming up after the break, and that teaser is what we call it. If that teaser has something really quirky, you're gonna stay. So if you can think of what that announcer would say that you can connect to your product or service that would sound kind of quirky or fun, that's a great way to draw attention. And in any of the material that I've mentioned above, if there is some sort of timely relevance. So example in number 4, if there's something new or changing in your field, if there's a bylaw that's recently been passed, that's timely. You want to get that story out while the bylaw is still fresh, and editors, producers want to cover it while it's still fresh. So let them know that there's a timeliness to the story. By the way, I will be looking at questions at the end, and I'll be sticking around so we can cover whatever anybody wants to know. So now it comes up, well, what do I put in an email? Now I've decided that I've looked at places I want to be. I've gone through the story checklist and I understand what makes a good story. What do I put in my email? So first off, I want to know who you are and what problem you help solve. This is very similar to what you might put on your own website. Who are you and what problem you help solve? And do it in a very succinct way. I usually suggest 2 sentences for each of these. So I might say, hi, my name is Bela Lazarus. I teach media relations courses. I help small business get into the media. The problem I help solve is when small businesses don't know how to access media, but they really need the media attention. I help explain in a very simple way how they can reach out to media and how they can get their name in the news. That might have been more than 3 sentences, I don't know, but they're very short. But you get the idea. You just want to kind of hit the nail on the head. Sometimes I suggest maybe turn it around. And so I might say, these days, many small businesses are trying to reach out to media and they don't know where to start. What I do is I take the mystery out of accessing media by teaching small businesses how to reach out for themselves. That was 2 sentences. Credibility factors. Do you have education? Do you have experience? Do you have testimonials? Do you have results? From my point of view, again, I would say I have 20 plus years of experience working in television, radio, online, offline magazines, and newspapers. 1 sentence, if you can, because I need to know why I should see you as the expert. Some of the topics you can speak about. So this is where you get into the nitty-gritty of what your expertise is. If you have written a blog, the title of a blog is very easily transferred into the topic you speak about. And I suggest people actually say, here are 5 topics I can speak about, and number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and put in the titles. I would just warn you, you want to make sure the titles are specific. So don't say, if you have an expertise in human resources, for example, a title like avoiding nasty politics in the office is a little bit vague. You might, if you're talking about, how to deal with politics between employers and employees, that might be more specific. So you just want to think, does this come across directly? Will the person reading this understand what I'm talking about? So in the title of an advice column, keep it short, like maybe 8 or 10 words maximum, and make sure that it's very clear. The editor or producer, if they're looking at that, they can edit it afterwards. They can change it, but you want to make sure they get a good idea of what you have to offer. What if you have a story idea? What if you'd like the Vancouver Sun to come out and interview you because of a story you've thought of? What if you'd like to be interviewed on global television? So topics that you think would make a good story would be next in an email. And sometimes you can put both of these in, topics for an advice column and topics for a good story. Sometimes they're compatible. Sometimes I tell people, depending on what the content is, you might want to send different emails. One that will focus on content for an advice column if you think that that's most appropriate, and another one where you're sending a pitch that would be about a feature story. There are a lot of people who don't feel confident in writing, so they would just like to be interviewed for a good story. And so that's all they send the pitch for. Finally, and perhaps the most important, you need to include somewhere why their audience should care. Take some time to think about this. Draw yourself a bubble bath, grab a glass of wine, sit down and say, okay, I've got this idea. Why would their audience care? And I actually tell the participants in my class, write this out in the email. Why your audience should care, or why should your audience care? Question mark, and then put in the answer. Because many people go through this problem and I have the right solution. If we go back to Barry Sampson's event, why should the audience care? Tens of thousands of people suffer from depression around the holidays. This event will open up channels for them to access for support and ideas for their loved ones when it comes to what to say to them at this time of year. That really hits home. And any producer or editor reading that will get it right away. Yeah, I've got people in my audience who care about this. And if you've done your emails correctly, they'll say, yes, come on in. If you've sent the email to a media outlet where their audience isn't going to care, you've missed the mark. That's why if you go back earlier to what I said, you want to do some research by reading the content of the magazines, watching the TV, listening to the radio show, so that you can tell that the content is directed to the same people. You can also download what's called media kits that tell you a lot of information about the listeners, the viewers, and the readers. And that's something else that we go over in the course. I show you how to find these media kits so that it makes it really easy for you to determine if these are your demographics. When you leverage media, I want to make this really clear. So after you're getting your coverage, what do? You want to get your own recording or PDF copy. This is so important. A lot of people rely too much on the links that are sent to them. And if those links die, like after a period of 6 months, maybe a PDF on somebody's website is no longer there, there's nothing you can link to. So before you get onto a podcast or radio or TV interview, ask them if you can get a copy. If not, go in with your phone to record, or get a mini recorder. I use a tiny digital recorder, cost $100, and record it for yourself. If you've been interviewed on the phone by a newspaper or magazine, at the end of the interview, ask the reporter or editor, how can I get a PDF copy of this? They will be too busy to follow up with you. So chances are the best option is to get the name of the person who actually puts the PDF together, and then you can get the PDF copy. If you are doing a Zoom interview, which is very common if you're on a podcast, you can ask permission to record to your computer, and then you can actually keep that and have that. You can pull little pieces out and use bits of recording in order to help you publicize and market your expertise. And if you're doing any kind of phone interview, ask if you can get an audio recording. There are ways that you can actually record the phone interview yourself. And again, this is something that I've been doing for more than 20 years. It's very easy to do, and I can explain that in the course. And the second thing about leverage is, what are you going to do with it? How do you leverage what you've got? Media page, absolutely essential. There are 8 elements to a media page. I don't have time to go into it now, but this is something that has its own module in my course. Very important if you're going to access media as well, because media wants to know everything about you on one page. They don't want to poke around all over your website looking for material. And if you have media coverage and it's on your media page, other media, which will go to your media page, will be impressed. And then you will get more media coverage. Any kind of marketing material, links in social media, it's great if you, like on LinkedIn, you could put up a live post. If you've got several different pieces of media coverage, post a few times a day or once a day. And also look for other channels. See if there are other people who would be interested in reposting your material to their audience. So if you are B2B and you've got an advice column that's very useful, reach out to people who have B2B followers, maybe email lists, and ask them to spread the information and the link. So this is just really great as well for generating speaking opportunities. If you have joint ventures you want to create with other people, there's just this kind of credibility just goes a long way in making people interested in what you have to offer. And then finally, to use media coverage to demonstrate credibility, as I mentioned, if other media outlets see that you've already been in a particular media outlet. So in the case of Barry, he was on CBC Radio, and a newscaster in another province heard about it and then wanted to do an interview with him. So it enables you to boost credibility for other media outlets. And of course, posting the logos on your homepage. For many people, this is a top demonstration of credibility. And imagine when you land on somebody's media page and you see all those logos, what is the feeling you get, right? Like, wow, all these people see them as an expert. All these media outlets have seen this person as an expert, as an expert. They must have expertise. I want to work with them. So now I'm going to ask you, what is stopping you from actually reaching out to media coverage? For most people, they don't know where to start. It seems quite complicated. A lot of people are under the mistaken idea that you can't do it yourself, which leaves them in a bit of a rock and a hard place, because for small businesses, if you feel you can't do it yourself, you think, oh, I have to reach out to a PR company to do it for me, which is not true. Then they go to PR company and the PR company says, yeah, we'll do it, but it's going to cost you $2,000 a month, and we require you to sign up for a minimum of 6 months. That's a very, very common contract. And so then you go, okay, well, I don't have the money for that, and that's it. A lack of belief in yourself, because you think, who would listen to me? Where so many people have advice to give they don't even know. Maybe you need a system. A lot of people do very well when you need a step-by-step system, or you need some guidance. So all of this is really, really relevant. But the key thing that I find that stops people is that they don't really get the power of media. We're all so stuck in, oh, I gotta boost all my, do a live post on social media on my Facebook, and I've got to post on LinkedIn Publisher, and that's great. Listen, I do that too, but not to the exclusion of media, traditional media, radio, television, and newspapers. That should be part of any kind of marketing campaign. Here's an example where one of my clients got $2 million venture opportunity from one article. $2 million, because the article was picked up by the business manager, Jacques Cousteau's, for the Jacques Cousteau's son. They reached out to him. He formed a joint venture with the Cousteaus, and they became global brand ambassadors. The news of it reached shareholders, and the company's value increased by $2 million. So that was just one article that went out. And if you remember Barry, he found that the results were around his credibility. He says he was no more of an expert than he was before he did the interviews, but suddenly he was credible. I love that, because it's so true. Having the references to media outlets, being able to say, yes, I got an advice column in Business in Vancouver. I was interviewed in BC Business. I had a feature article done in Vita magazines. I showed my fashion on the Marilyn Denis show. All of that is just incredible credibility. How is it done? The Media Mastery System, this is what I told you I would explain. So I developed 5 simple steps to get publicity for your brand, service, or product. And here is the strategy, going back to what I showed you before. What we do in the system, I go over with you what your offer is and what makes a good story. If you remember what I mentioned in the email, who are you and what's the problem you help solve? That's number 1. What's your offer? Where do you want to be? Again, there are places that will benefit you, like with Barry, the radio and television, but then we also talk about what's going to be the most appropriate, what gives you the best chance to start with. These are things that you may not be able to determine for yourself. Most people can't. So the discussion we have in class goes over what is it that's really going to be the best opportunity for you. Then I cover 6 different types of media pitches. I have templates for everybody to use. It's very simple to just pop your material in so that you know exactly what to put in a media pitch. We go over who to send it to and how to find those contacts. I have some really good tricks on how to find the direct emails of the media decision makers, things that PR companies don't even know. And then we'll discuss how to best leverage your media coverage. So this Media Mastery System is essentially a 6-week program. And what the results you get from it is creating a media-ready story pitch. So we go from concept to completion. We follow these 6 different steps, from getting clear on your story to leveraging the media outreach that you do have. We'll have access between classes, so I'll give you feedback on your homework. I don't want anybody to send any press releases or media pitches out before I look at them. So you get the expert advice of somebody with 20 years of experience knowing how to write the media pitches. And as I mentioned with Barry, we had to clean up the subject line and the content, the structure of the content before he sent out his new media pitches, and any questions or roadblocks that you have along the way. You're going to get lifetime access to the Media Mastery membership for my Facebook group. You can post questions there. We have previous graduates, PR professionals, participants, clients, everybody is in there who has taken my material and who knows my material. So when you post, you get feedback from people who have experienced this. So imagine if you could ask Barry directly, hey, what was it like to be in the interview with Gloria Makarenko, right? Just post the question there, address it to Barry, and he'll answer you. And then accountability, things, something that people really lack in no matter what they're doing when they're building a business. Having somebody keep track of what they're up to, following up, and ensuring that they're completing the material. And the bonuses that I've selected for my students, because I think these are the most useful that you can have, are templates, so that you can take a specific template, match it to your media needs, apply it to your own service or product, and just fill in the blanks. It's as easy as that. Follow the instructions, and within between half an hour to an hour, that's all it's going to take, you will have a completed media pitch draft. I'm not going to say that it's going to be perfect, but it's way easier than starting with a blank piece of paper. And access to the editorial calendars. So I showed you the power of the editorial calendars, like having a crystal ball where you can look into the future and you can see what these magazines are looking for. This includes cultural, business, food, event planning, retirement and financial planning, real estate, health, fitness, any of those media outlets. We can find editorial material for, editorial calendars for. And by the way, I do the outreach to find these editorial calendars, and I have them in a Dropbox that you can just go in and access. And if there's anything missing, I show you how to find the editorial calendars for yourself. And finally, all the people who attend my courses are allowed reattendance in the Media Mastery 6-week live training, any of my future groups. To refresh your knowledge. If you miss a class, they are recorded, but you might want to come back and do it again. Fresh people, fresh take on things. You're allowed to come back into the class and get any of your new questions answered. So the services that are mentioned, if I were to break it down and go and find all these services elsewhere, you'd probably pay up over $10,000. Most of you know, if you've read the emails that I've sent out, or if you happen to see my video today, the price for this is going up to $19.97. The reason for that is because in addition to the 6-week program, for the future, I am going to be adding other material, more support, and one-to-one access to me. So that 6-week program that is now $597 is only going to be a recorded program. So if you want to apply to the 6-week program starting February 1st, it will be $19.97. However, I have kept this special until January 31st. It was supposed to be January 1st, but I was sick over Christmas and I couldn't get the marketing material out, so I've extended it. So if you go to my bit.ly link to sign up, bit.ly/Media Mastery 597, Media Mastery, all lowercase, 597, that's where you can get the link to sign up to this course at this deal only until tomorrow night, midnight. Now, I offered you a special bonus gift. These are 7 videos showing you how to create your media-ready pitches. This is a thank you for staying online and for listening to the material that I had. This is also a bit.ly link /7 videos. And they're very short. They're 10 to 15 minutes, 7 videos. You could do 1 a day for a week. And by the end of the week, you will actually have completed media pitches. So make sure you take that down, 7 videos. Once again, whoops, this is just a repeat. I'm going to the Q&A right now. I'm going to actually go into the chat box, and if you have any questions, you can post them there. I know that some people have been asking for information. So, question about whether there is recording. There is a recording, and it will be sent around. And so if you are able to watch the recording, by the way, if you are watching the recording now, so if you haven't been able to join me in my class, in my live webinar, and you're watching the recording, the same deal holds for you. You can access the $597 price up until midnight, January 31st, Wednesday. A question. Will this be just as helpful for me given I'm in the United States? Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Especially since you have a service that is actually a consulting service. There are tons of places that you can pitch your material to, and it's the same process. It's the same process. Although maybe in the States they say process, I'm not sure. But you know, I actually had a client in Los Angeles who was B2B. We went online to look for those editorial calendars. If you recall, I showed you an editorial calendar from Business in Vancouver, and they have the exact same style editorial calendars for their business-to-business publications there. They have same editorial calendars for business-to-consumer. As a life coach, by the way, you are so well suited to actually pitch to both business to consumer as well as business to business. I guarantee it. I don't know if you've thought of that. Maybe you can post, Mary Jo, maybe you can post in the chat box if you've actually considered that you can reach out to both consumer and business media. That gives you so much leverage. And I love that. I love being able to take a product or service, or somebody who thinks, well, I only have like a consumer product or service, so that's where I'm going to pitch. And I say, no, we can find abilities to pitch to business media too, so we double your outreach. Because yes, I'm just starting to promote as corporate life coach. Beautiful, perfect. So we can go into, in fact, I'm trying to think if I have access to it right now. I'm not going to go there right now. But we can go into the business-to-business publications. They're called ABPs, Area Business Publications. So Business in Vancouver is an area business publication. They're basically regional publications. And we go in, we find the editorial calendars, we look for the sections on HR, and we pitch to the HR sections, because that's exactly where you would fit in. And then of course, we focus in on, while you're a corporate life coach, you may have specialties that you want to focus in on, and we use those to actually create more interest So we are much more directed in the kind of material that people would be interested in, and it makes the media pitches more desirable. So absolutely, yes, yes. Thank you, Patricia. Wonderful that signed up. Yep. So yeah, just I'm gonna hang around here just to see if there's anything else that people want to ask. And while we're here, I'll add a few more items. You know, there are a lot of tips that come up. They don't really fit into any particular category, but today on my course, I was actually telling people about writing letters to the editor. And, you know, it's funny, Mary Jo and Patricia, you might be able to answer this. Have you ever heard something on the radio or read an article in a newspaper or even seen something in social media that gets you really pissed off? Or you look at it and you can't believe that somebody thinks that way. Or, you know, it makes you laugh or whatever. It gets you some sort of emotional reaction because you know you have certain knowledge that Patricia says, yes, I talk to the radio all the time. Perfect. You know that you have specific knowledge that you would love to get out there, right? So, for example, maybe Mary Jo, if you're looking at corporate life coaching, what's the letter to the editor that you were thinking of writing? So I'm going to continue talking about the value. So writing a letter to the editor is really valuable for several reasons. Number one, it's really easy to do because it's something that's very short and it focuses on the emotions that you have. So you can get it out very quickly. When I, as an editor at Business Vancouver, would receive an email that said letter to the editor in the subject line, I opened it right away because we love reading those opinion pieces. And publications, whether they're online or in print, have space for letters to the editor. So why not open that email because I need to fill space with letters to the editor. The second thing that makes them really valuable is you get in front of the editor. They get to know you. When your letter to the editor is printed, people get to know you. It's a very quick way of getting publicity. And in the letter to the editor, so Mary Jo, maybe you can write just one sentence to give us an idea of what the topic was. But I'll give my own example. So, you know, going back, I'll use Barry. He's a really good example. Barry has a specialty knowledge. He's a life coach. He has specialty knowledge around depression. If he heard somebody talking on the radio or read an article and he thought, no, they have it wrong, there's a misinformation out there about this topic. And he writes a letter to the editor and says, you know, I heard this on the radio, or, you know, people are talking about this, or I read this in your newspaper, and I really have to set the record straight. I am a life coach with 20 years of experience working with people in depression. What I found to be misinformation is, and he puts that in, and then what the real impact of depression is, or what people should really know about depression is, and then he explains it in his own terms. So what he's done is put his name in front of the editor, demonstrated his credibility, demonstrated what he can talk about, and opened up the opportunities for people to contact him to do more interviews. So now if that editor thinks ever in the future that he's looking for somebody with a specialty in that field, he knows Barry. He knows him because he read the letter. He sees the credibility. If Barry is well written and can communicate well, that's great. They know that they can do a good interview. And Barry has demonstrated that he has not a solution, but he has advice to give on the topic. So all of these can be available by simply writing a letter to the editor. So it kills several birds with one stone. And also it gets it off your chest. Isn't it great to be able to write something with that emotion? Like, I can't believe somebody said this. I want to set the record straight and then send it off and have it published. It's such a good feeling. So Mary Jo says, a local talk show, Facebook rant about how horrible some fans were in an NFL game. I disagreed with the popular consensus that the city does not deserve Amazon to build their second headquarters there. Okay, so good. And the other thing, I love it when you are a dissenting opinion. And decision makers, radio producers and editors love it as well. Very often when you have what might be a one-sided issue, they always get experts emailing and saying, I'd love to talk to you about this, but it's the same opinion that they've heard over and over again. So why would they post that same material if they've heard it before? Whereas if you're a dissenting opinion, then that means they get a fresh view, and maybe they'll charge the controversy a little bit, they'll charge the content. Maybe if they have an interview with you on radio, other viewers will call in or write in or get upset. Like, they want to get the discussion going. And of course, when they post it on their website, people can then comment, and so they draw people to the website. So it's just like a win-win-win scenario. It's just a great way to be able to have this kind of attention for their media outlet, and you get attention for your expertise, for your knowledge, and for your ability to communicate. Okay, so I think I've covered everything I need to. I don't see any more questions in the chat box. I will suggest once again, take this step. By the way, there is a payment plan. I did not mention that. It's $200 a month. Oh my God, like seriously, $200 a month for 3 months, or $219 for 3 months. Bit.ly link, bit.ly/Media Mastery 597. Even if you think, I'm not really sure, I don't know, just click on the link and you can see a description, a more detailed description of what you're going to get in the content of the course. And February 1st, that 597 will only get you a recorded program. So if you want to participate in live feedback, in a live course, in the, it's always so much fun to go live. The participation that you get from other people, just the dynamics of a live course, it's so much different. And if you want to get access to the feedback between the courses, between the classes, you can get that by signing up today or by the end of tomorrow. So thank you everyone for joining me. I hope even if you don't sign up, you did get value from today, and I look forward to seeing you in the Media Spotlight. Have a great rest of the week.